Welcome back to Ruben's Rundown. Today we're going to be talking about using a 3D printer to print a remote control holder. Okay, so I have this Roku TV remote control, and oftentimes you can go to Amazon and order a holder, but what I have found is whenever I've ordered a holder, the holder doesn't properly fit the remote. It's either too big or too small. So today we're going to talk about my steps on how I go about designing and printing a remote control holder that I could adhere either to the back of a TV or to a wall. So let's get into it. All right, so we've got the Roku remote, and the first thing that we have to do is sketch. Make a little sketch. We got to take some dimensions, and the dimensions that we'll be taking is in millimeters using this digital caliper. Then we're going to go to what's called Tinkercad, which is a web-based CAD system where we're going to design it. So let's do the first part. So I've got my iPad mini here, and I'm going to put Roku remote holder. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dimensions of the remote. Okay, so we have a width of 41.8. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and round up. So we're going to say 42 millimeters wide. The length is 140.9. And like I said, we're going to go ahead and round up. And then the thickness, or the depth, and we're going to try to pick the thickest part of the remote, is 21.7. And we're going to round up to 22. So now that we have the dimensions of the item, now we have to think about this in 3 dimensions. That's why we took width, length, and depth. So I know that the holder needs to hold this unit, but I don't want it to be too small and I don't want it to be too big. So now that we've got the dimensions, we're going to think, how much do we add so we can create, how much do we add to these dimensions so this can fit snug? So I'm going to say we're going to add 1 millimeter. So that means that the space that we're going to allocate for this remote is going to be 43 by 142 by 23 millimeters. So that's going to be the void or the space or the pocket, however you want to think about it. Okay, so we're going to begin with that. We want to do some sort of enclosure. It's not a full enclosure. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a top view. So we know that it is going to be rectangular. So we know that the height of the remote, or the length, is 140. So we're going to start off with at least, I'd say it doesn't have to be completely 140. I would say 100. 100 millimeters tall. And then the width, and the height really doesn't matter that much, but the width will, okay? So it's been in my experience that we want a 2 millimeter wall, okay? At least 2 millimeter wall. So if we know that the width is 43 millimeters, that we want to have this pocket, and we know that the sides, we have a left and right side, and bottom side as well, but left and right is going to be 2 millimeter buffer each, okay? So that means we have to add 4 millimeters to each side. So essentially, we're going to take our 43, and knowing that we want at least a 2 millimeter thickness in wall, thickness. So we're going to say it's 47 millimeters. Okay. Now from the top, we want to have a little bit. Okay. So if we were to do a side view, then it's going to be like this. Okay. So here we have a band, and that band is going to hold it. So how high do we want that band? So I'm going to go ahead and say we want the height of it to be 75 millimeters. And the thickness of this band, we're going to say maybe 15 millimeters. Okay, so now we've got the dimensions looking at it from the top. Okay, the width is the one that's really, really crucial. Okay, so now we're looking at it from the side. Once again, we know it's 100 millimeters. Now we want to know how far do we want this to come out. And this is going to be the same distance from here. So we're going to say that this is that the thickness here of the base is going to be 4 millimeters. Okay. Now we know that the pocket to enclose the remote, the depth is 23 millimeters. So we need to know we know that this from here to here has to be 23. But we also know that we're working with a 2 millimeter wall thickness. So we've already got 4 millimeters for the base. We've got 23 millimeters for the pocket or the space. And then we have to add the 2 millimeters for the wall. So the thickness needs to be 4 plus 2 plus 23. So that gives us 29 millimeters. That should be enough room to do this. Now we know that this is going to be 2 millimeters. So tall. So now we need to figure out how long. Well, we know this is going to be 29 millimeters, and that's going to be 2 millimeters thick and 2 millimeters tall. That's just to add a little bit of lip, just to kind of secure that the remote. So let's see, let's review. Do we have all of the measurements that we need in order to go to our CAD program? Okay, so let's review to see if we have all of the dimensions that we need. So we know we've got a top view and a side view. We know the width, and we have accounted for the pocket as well as the wall. The height is really not that important. The width of the band that's going to hold it, or the height of the band is good. We want the height of where the band ends. So from the top, I think we've gotten everything. Now from the side, we already know the length. We want the width of the base, which we figured out is going to be 29 millimeters. That's going to account for 4 millimeters of the base, 23 millimeters for the depth of the remote, plus a 2 millimeter wall. So 23, 25, 29. We know that we also want the base here to come out 29 millimeters, and then it's going to go up 2 millimeters because it's 2 millimeters thick. So I think we have all of the dimensions that we need. So let's go to our computer and construct it. All right, guys, we are now in Tinkercad, and we're going to rename this Roku remote holder. All right, we're going to begin with just the void that we were talking about to house the remote. So we established that we want a width of 43 millimeters. We want a length of 142 millimeters. And then we want a height of 23 millimeters. So this is going to be the area that we're going to use to make sure that the remote fits in here. Now we're going to take another block and we're going to go with 100 millimeters tall by 47 millimeters wide. And we know that it's going to be 29 millimeters tall. So from here, we're going to align these together. And we're going to select the remote area space, and we establish that we want the base to be 4 millimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 millimeters here, 2 millimeters around, okay? But we're not done because, as you can see, the remote has a little, now we got just a hole. So we're gonna realign this and we're gonna go 1, 2. So we know that 2 millimeters is going to be, so if I were to make this transparent, not that one, that is whole or hollow. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the holder is transparent. We've got a 4 millimeter base, 2 millimeter wall going from this side, the opposite side, and this side. Okay, so if we group these together, all right, I figured out what happened. So let's continue. So now we have the block that we're starting off with, and then we've got the hole that the remote is going to go in. So we've got a 4 millimeter base with a 2 millimeter wall in all areas. Okay, so let's go ahead and group these together. So you don't see anything here, but you do see something here. There's a pocket. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take another hole, actually several holes, and we know that it's going to be 2, 3, 4 millimeters tall, okay? So this is where, if I said that I want a 29, if we know that 23 millimeters is the height. And really the length, I don't care what the length is going to be. But the width I do, because we want this to be 75 millimeters minus 15, that's 60. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align these. So we've got this open part here, and now we're going to copy and now I'm going to make this, because remember we wanted a lip, 58, and then I want this to come up. So we've got this here. And now we're going to duplicate that. Except this one is okay to be the full height. So we're going to bring it down. So we want this base and this base and then this, we want the height to be, okay, so here we have the cutouts. So I made 3. As you can see, this is identical to that. And then I made another one to make it, to give it this lip. So once I group it together, there. So now we have constructed our little remote holder. Now let's just say, I mean, that's it. Hopefully we did the dimensions properly. And now we're going to go ahead and export this as an STL. We're going to open up our Bambu Lab. We're going to import the Roku remote holder. And we're going to choose black. We're going to let the printer tell us how should it orient it for best printing. So as you can see, it oriented it in a vertical manner, which is fine. And I know I'm going to add a support, because I know that there's this little like overhanging. Okay, so obviously when the printer's going this way, it's going to go do 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 do. Then when it gets to here, if it doesn't have any support, it's just going to fall down. It can do that, but we always want to use a support. Now we're going to do a preview, and you can see this is where the supports are at, right here. And those will be able to come off. So now that we've got our design, we've got our desired color, let's go ahead and send it to the printer. We're going to slice it and then print and send. So this is going to go to a little preview window if we want, but it's going to heat up. So yeah, we'll come back and check it out. All right, guys, it has finished printing. Let's check it out. So this is my setup right here. I've got some extra spools. I've got the printer and I've got a camera inside it. There's a camera already inside, but this one is a little bit better quality. So let's see. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Okay, so normally I would remove the plate, but I don't think I have to. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this. So yeah. All right, got the finished product here. I was able to remove the little supports, super simple. Now let's get the remote, the moment of truth. Does it fit? Yep, sure does. Look at that. Fits, no problem. So we're going to do it from this angle. So we have printed a holder, and I put some double-sided tape in the back that I'm going to put up against it. But yeah, mission accomplished. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you've learned something, or it was at least entertaining. Please remember to like and subscribe, and be sure to check back for more content from Ruben's Rundown.